AITA for exposing my wife's false guarantee after she laughed as an investor insulted me? I'm Caleb, 38, and I had been Serena's husband for 9 years by the time I finally understood the difference between keeping the peace and letting people rewrite who you are. We hadn't always been like that. For years, Serena and I had a ritual after formal events. We would leave whatever ballroom or restaurant we had been trapped in, find an all-night diner, and split a stack of pancakes because neither of us liked the tiny desserts served on oversized plates. She would kick off her heels under the table. I would loosen my tie. We would laugh about the speeches, the forced networking, and the people who treated a silent auction like a military campaign. Back then, Serena's ambition was one of the things I loved most about her. She could walk into a crowded room and make it feel warmer. She remembered names, asked people real questions, and never seemed intimidated by wealth or status. I didn't marry her because she was quiet. I married her because she made rooms feel alive. The problem was that, over time, she started needing me to look smaller so she could feel taller. The changes were easy to dismiss at first. Before one dinner, she straightened my collar in the hotel lobby and said, "You should really let me choose your jackets." I looked down at the jacket. "What's wrong with this one?" "Nothing's wrong with it," she said, already scanning the room. "It just looks a little suburban." We didn't live in a suburb, and I knew she didn't mean geography. She meant ordinary. Another time, she made a joke at dinner about how I had once frozen halfway through a toast at her father's birthday. It had happened years earlier, after I lost my place on a note card. The family had laughed with me, and I had never been embarrassed by it. Serena told the story differently. "He just stood there," she said, widening her eyes for the table. Like the power went out. A few people chuckled. That was when Adrian leaned back in his chair and looked at me with the lazy amusement of a man who had already decided what I was worth. "Some people are built for center stage," he said. "Others are built for safe corners." The laughter that followed was uncertain, the kind people use when they're waiting to see if the target will object. I looked at Serena. She took a sip of wine and smiled. On the drive home, I told her the story had bothered me. "You laughed when it happened," she said. "I laughed at losing my place. I didn't laugh at being described as a man who belongs in a corner." She sighed and turned toward the window. "Adrian jokes with everyone. That doesn't mean every joke is harmless. You're reading too much into it. I'm telling you how it felt. And I'm telling you what he meant." That became a pattern in our marriage. I would tell Serena what someone had done. She would tell me what they had meant. Somehow, her interpretation always required me to accept less respect than I had asked for. Adrian was 42 and had the polished confidence of someone who was accustomed to being introduced before he entered a room. He invested in events, restaurants, boutique hotels, and anything else that gave him a reason to stand beside important people in photographs. He knew donors, board members, and the kind of people Serena increasingly wanted to impress. He was also very good at making compliments feel like rankings. "Serena understands momentum," he said at one reception. Then he glanced at me. "Every Serena needs someone stable at home, right?" I answered before she could. "Stable isn't the same as small." Adrian smiled. "See? Quiet guys always have one good line in them." Serena touched my sleeve under the table, not affectionately. It was a warning. "Later," she said, "why do you have to make everything tense?" "He insulted me. He called you stable. He used me as the dull background for a compliment about you. That's your interpretation." "No, Serena. That's how contrast works." She rolled her eyes. "You always do this when you feel outclassed." That word stayed with me. Outclassed. Not hurt. Not disrespected. Outclassed. As though our marriage had become a contest I hadn't agreed to enter. At our next event, the photographer asked us to stand near the sponsor wall. Serena was in the middle, Adrian stepped close on her left, and I stood on her right. When the photo appeared online the next day, Serena posted a cropped version. Adrian was fully visible. Half of my shoulder remained at the edge. I sent her a screenshot and wrote, "Seriously?" She replied, "It framed better." That evening, her friend Rachel told me I was being too sensitive. We were standing near the kitchen island while Serena opened a bottle of wine. Rachel said, "You know Serena loves you. Adrian is just part of this social world. You don't have to treat every interaction like a threat." "I don't think he's a threat." Rachel gave me a look that said she didn't believe me. "I think he's disrespectful," I continued. "There's a difference." Serena laughed softly. Caleb thinks respect means everyone has to adjust their personality around him. No, I said. I think respect means my wife doesn't help another man turn me into a joke. The room went quiet for a second. Rachel looked into her glass. Serena's face tightened. You're embarrassing me. We're in our kitchen. That's not the point. It was always the point when she felt exposed. Privacy mattered when she was the one being challenged. When I was the one being humiliated, I was supposed to have a sense of humor. A few weeks later, we attended an anniversary dinner for a group Serena had become close to. Adrian arrived late and immediately took over the table. He was charming enough that people forgave him for interrupting, and rich enough that no one minded when he ordered for everyone. Near the end of dinner, he raised his glass toward Serena. To bold women, he said, and to the safe men who are lucky those women still let them stand in the photo. A few people laughed. Serena laughed too. I set down my fork. Adrian looked at me. Come on, Caleb. That was affectionate. Was it? Absolutely. You're the safe option. Nothing wrong with safe. Serena leaned toward me. Don't do this here. I looked at her. Do what? Make it weird. I'm not the one describing your husband as the option you settled for. Adrian raised both hands. I said nothing about settling. You didn't have to. The table had gone quiet by then. Serena gave everyone a strained smile and changed the subject. She was good at that. She could redirect a room before anyone had to sit with discomfort. In the car, she didn't wait until we left the valet line. You made me look ridiculous. I stared ahead. Your friend called me the safe option and implied you were doing me a favor by keeping me around. He was joking. You laughed. Because normal adults know how to take a joke. I turned toward her. A husband asking not to be mocked isn't territorial. I never said territorial. You said it last time. Well, you are acting territorial. I'm not competing with Adrian. I don't care how much money he has, who he knows, or how loud he is. I care that you keep giving him permission to disrespect me. I can't control another adult. You can control whether you laugh. Her jaw tightened. I continued. You can say, that's enough. You can say, don't talk about my husband that way. You can stop treating my dignity like the price of admission into his circle. She looked down at her phone. Because you make everything about your ego. Respect in a marriage is not an ego problem. She didn't answer. She opened her messages and started typing. That night, I slept badly. Serena came to bed after midnight and acted like the argument had already expired. The next morning, she kissed my cheek, asked if I wanted coffee, and spoke about weekend plans without mentioning Adrian. For a while, that was how she kept me in place. She let time pass until bringing something up again made me look obsessive. I started wondering if I really was overreacting. So I called Owen. Owen had been my closest friend long enough to know when I was trying to talk myself out of my own instincts. We met for coffee, and I gave him the most balanced version I could. I told him Adrian was arrogant, but probably harmless. I admitted Serena might simply enjoy the attention and connections. I repeated her argument that I was interpreting everything through insecurity. Owen listened without interrupting. When I finished, he stirred his coffee and said, she's not just letting him disrespect you. She's outsourcing it. I frowned. What does that mean? It means he says the cruel part, and she gets to enjoy it without taking responsibility. You think she knows what she's doing? I think she likes not having to say it herself. That sounds harsh. So does laughing while another man tells your husband he's lucky to be tolerated. I looked toward the window. Owen lowered his voice. I'm not telling you to start a fight. I'm telling you to stop treating public humiliation like a private misunderstanding. I don't want to become the jealous husband. Then don't. Become the husband who keeps records and sets boundaries. I gave him a tired smile. That sounds romantic. Romance isn't the current emergency. A few nights later, June called me while I was sitting in the driveway. Serena had gone inside after another quiet argument in the car. We had attended a dinner where Adrian spent most of the evening praising Serena and interrupting me. I had said almost nothing because I didn't want to create a scene. June heard it in my voice immediately. What happened? Nothing new. That means something happened. I told her. She was quiet for a moment, then said, why are you still protecting her from the consequences of what she's doing? I'm trying not to embarrass her. Silence to protect her image isn't the same as protecting your marriage. I don't want everyone thinking I'm insecure. Then don't become the jealous husband. Become the honest one. I leaned back against the headrest and closed my eyes. June continued. You can love someone and still stop volunteering to be their cover story. That sentence stayed with me. A month before the gala, Serena brought me a document and asked for my signature. She described it as a temporary financial backstop for a charity hospitality package. The event committee had apparently committed to a venue deposit and several sponsor accommodations, but there was a short timing gap between payments. It's routine, she said. The committee just needs proof that the package is covered until the sponsor funds clear. I read the document. Serena stood beside the table, tapping one fingernail against her phone. It's one signature, Caleb. Not a federal case. It's a guarantee. A limited guarantee. Which is still a guarantee. She exhaled sharply. This is why Adrian says you slow down every room. I looked up at her. Why is Adrian commenting on how I review financial paperwork? He was joking. Again. She crossed her arms. Are you signing it or not? The document was narrow. It named a specific nonprofit purpose, identified a maximum amount, and included language allowing revocation if the purpose was materially misrepresented. I made one clarification in writing, asked for an updated copy, and signed only after the revised version arrived. Serena shook her head as I put the document away. You're incapable of being spontaneous. If everything is exactly what you say it is, the limits won't matter. She kissed my forehead with exaggerated patience. Thank you. At the time, I thought the signature was an attempt to support her. I didn't know she and Adrian had already decided it belonged to him. 3 days before the gala, Serena asked me to check an event email. The coordinator misspelled your name on the seating card, she said. She sent the correction to the wrong address again. Can you confirm it's fixed? She was standing beside me when I opened the message. There was no secrecy involved. The email included a PDF of the seating chart, a list of last-minute revisions, and a spreadsheet of reimbursements. I clicked the seating chart first. My name was correct. Then I noticed an attachment labeled Hospitality Image Package. One line in the preview read, A. Advisory, Venture Presentation Support. Another listed a reimbursement amount of $18,700. The number stopped me. 2 months earlier, Serena had told me that an $18,700 charge from our joint account covered gala deposits, guest accommodations, and sponsor support. I had asked why personal funds were being used, and she said the committee would reimburse us. I clicked the spreadsheet. Serena leaned closer. Just confirm they fixed the card. Don't go through the whole thing. I'm looking at the attachment they sent with it. That's just event stuff. The line items were not just event stuff. Private dinners, ride shares, image consulting, photography, travel reimbursements. Several entries were connected to Adrian's hospitality venture, not the charity gala. I didn't react. That was the hardest part. I closed the attachment, showed Serena the corrected seating card, and said, "Looks fine." She smiled as though nothing had happened. Great. That night, after she went to bed, I checked the joint bank account. It was my account too, and I didn't need permission to review it. The $18,700 charge was there. So were smaller charges I hadn't paid attention to because they blended into normal household spending. Restaurants Serena had described as committee dinners. Ride shares at times, she said she was with Rachel. A photographer connected to Adrian's private presentation. A hotel charge from a trip Serena said had been fully sponsored. I pulled up the emails I had been copied on when the guarantee was created. Then I reviewed my signed copy. The nonprofit purpose was explicit. The use I had just found was not. The next morning, there was a voicemail on the house line. We rarely used it, which was probably why Serena had forgotten Adrian's assistant had that number. Hi, Serena. This is Paige from Adrian's office. We need the clean copy of Caleb's guarantee letter before tomorrow's backer call. Adrian said the private support language is important for confidence. Please send the latest version when you can. I saved the voicemail. I still didn't confront Serena. Instead, I started documenting. The visible email attachments. The joint account charges. The guarantee language. The voicemail. Calendar entries Serena had shared with me. Receipts attached to reimbursement requests. The messages were the last thing I found. Serena had once used our shared computer to answer event messages because her laptop was being repaired. Her account had remained logged in. I didn't search through her private conversations. I opened the event thread connected to the reimbursement attachment because it was already displayed in the shared browser history and directly concerned my money and signature. The thread included a short exchange between Serena and Adrian. Serena, Caleb won't question it. He hates conflict. Adrian, useful as long as he stays quiet. Dead weight at the table, but useful behind it. Serena had responded with a laughing reaction. There were other messages. Nothing physical. Nothing that proved an affair. What they proved was bad enough. She had told Adrian about arguments inside our marriage. She had mentioned my discomfort with public speaking. She had described an old insecurity I had shared with her after a difficult year, then joked that Adrian should not use all his material at once. My wife had not merely failed to protect me. She had supplied the ammunition. I sat at the dining table until the sun came up, reading only what directly related to the deception and the public comments. I didn't feel jealous. I felt used. They had built a version of me together, quiet, insecure, harmless, too afraid of conflict to ask questions. Adrian mocked that version in public while using my legal commitment in private. Serena laughed because she believed my silence belonged to her. At 8 o'clock that morning, I called the attorney who had reviewed the guarantee language for me. I explained what I had found and sent the relevant documents. He called back before lunch. The stated purpose appears to have been misrepresented, he said. The revocation clause is clear. We can issue notice today. Do it. The subject line read, Notice of Revocation, Limited Guarantee Due to Misrepresentation. The notice went out by email and certified mail to every party named in the agreement. By the end of the day, I had confirmation that it had been received. I moved my direct deposits away from the joint account. I froze the joint card for new discretionary charges without interfering with utilities, insurance, or regular bills. Then I scheduled a consultation with a family lawyer. I didn't empty accounts. I didn't try to strand Serena financially. I protected incoming funds and stopped new unexplained spending. Owen was the only person I told. He read the messages twice. Then he looked at me and said, If you confront them with feelings, they'll call it insecurity. If you confront them with facts, they'll have to answer. I'm not planning a performance. Good. I'm still going to the gala. Why? Because Serena asked me to go before I found any of this. And because I want to see what she chooses when he crosses the line again. Owen studied me for a moment. You already know what she'll choose. I know what she chose in private. I need to see if there's anything left of us in public. He didn't argue. On the night of the gala, Serena got ready in near silence. She wore a dark green dress she had spent weeks choosing. While she adjusted an earring in the mirror, she said, Please don't embarrass me tonight. I was tying my own tie. By doing what? By acting like Adrian is a threat. A man isn't a threat because he has money. She looked at me through the mirror. He's a problem when my wife laughs while he disrespects me. I said. Her shoulders dropped. You're already starting. I haven't started anything. You make everything about your ego. I finished the knot and met her eyes in the reflection. Respect in a marriage is not an ego problem. She picked up her bag. I can't have this conversation again. We're not having it again. Something in my tone made her turn. For a second, I thought she might ask what I meant. Instead, she said, Good. The ride to the gala was quiet. The event was held in a hotel ballroom with a sponsor wall near the entrance, a check-in table covered in white cloth, and rows of donor cards arranged beside small gold lamps. A photographer stood near the step-and-repeat backdrop. Servers moved through the crowd with champagne trays. The moment we entered, Serena changed. Her posture lifted. Her smile brightened. She became the version of herself that had once impressed me. Adrian saw her from across the room. There she is, he called. The only person here who can make donors feel poor and grateful at the same time. Serena laughed. Stop. You're ridiculous. She said it like a protest, but she leaned toward him when she laughed. Adrian touched her elbow and guided her toward the sponsor wall. The photographer raised his camera. I stood beside Serena, but Adrian positioned himself close enough that his shoulder nearly touched hers. Rachel was nearby. She glanced at me as if waiting for a reaction. I gave her none. At dinner, the printed seating cards placed Serena between me and Rachel. Adrian was supposed to sit across from us. That lasted 10 minutes. He pulled his chair around the table and settled beside Serena, claiming he needed to discuss a donor introduction. Serena made no effort to move him back. Halfway through the first course, Adrian brought up my failed family toast. Caleb, Serena says you still avoid microphones after that famous shutdown. I looked at Serena. How would he know that? She didn't meet my eyes. People talk. People. Friends. Couples. Everyone vents. Don't make it weird. Adrian smiled. Relax. I'm not publishing your memoir. A couple of guests laughed softly. Then Adrian mentioned a disagreement Serena and I had had about money. Not the guarantee. A private argument from the previous year. He said, you know, Caleb, every dollar needs a seat belt. Rachel stopped smiling. I looked at Serena again. She lifted her wine glass. It was a joke. No, I said. It was a private conversation. Adrian leaned back. You really do audit every sentence, don't you? I said nothing. The speeches began. Serena watched the stage with one hand resting near Adrian's glass. Every few minutes, he leaned toward her and whispered something. She smiled without looking at me. When the main course arrived, my plate was wrong. I had requested the standard meal, but the server brought the vegetarian option. It wasn't a serious issue. I stood and followed the server a few steps to clarify. When I returned, Adrian was in my chair. My seating card was still on the table in front of him. He didn't move. Instead, he raised his glass and looked around the table. Some husbands, he said, are just quiet furniture in a powerful woman's life. Rachel whispered, oh my God, but she was smiling. A couple of guests laughed automatically. Serena laughed too. I stood behind my chair and waited. Adrian turned slightly, pretending to notice me for the first time. There he is. Caleb, you know I'm kidding. Are you? He looked at Serena. Your husband is in serious mode again. Serena gave me the expression she had used for months. The one that dared me to swallow the insult so she wouldn't have to feel uncomfortable. Don't be sensitive, Caleb, she said. He's joking. Adrian finally stood, but he didn't step away. He put one hand on the back of my chair. You seem like a decent guy, he said. Just not the kind of man a woman like her brags about. The laughter died. Forks stopped moving. The photographer, who had drifted close to capture table shots, lowered his camera slightly. I looked at Serena. She smiled, but there was tension around her mouth. Don't start, she said. I sat down. For several seconds, I said nothing. Adrian's grin returned because he mistook silence for surrender. Then I placed my water glass on the table. Funny, I said, considering your deal dies Monday without the guarantee you lied to get. His face went blank. Serena's smile disappeared. Adrian gave a short laugh. What are you talking about? I took my phone from my jacket pocket. You really should have checked who was keeping your reputation alive before you used mine as a punchline. Serena's hand closed around my wrist under the table. Caleb, she said quietly. I pulled my hand free. Adrian's voice stayed smooth, but his eyes had changed. This isn't the venue for that conversation. It was the venue for calling me useless. A man across the table leaned forward. He had been introduced earlier as one of the potential backers for Adrian's hospitality project. What guarantee, he asked. Adrian didn't answer him. He looked at Serena. She stood. Caleb, come outside. No. Her face flushed. Now. No. You made me a joke in public. The correction can be public too. I opened the formal revocation confirmation on my phone and placed it on the table where Adrian could see it. Months ago, Serena asked me to sign a limited guarantee for a nonprofit hospitality package, I said. The written purpose was narrow. The guarantee was revocable if that purpose was misrepresented. Adrian's jaw tightened. I continued. It was forwarded to private backers as proof that your venture had stable personal support. That was not the agreement I signed. The guarantee has been revoked. Notice was acknowledged yesterday. The potential backer looked at Adrian. Is that true? Adrian waved one hand. This is a domestic misunderstanding being dragged into a business setting. I held up the voicemail transcript from his assistant. Your office called my house asking for the clean copy because, and I quote, the private support language is important for confidence. Serena reached for my phone. I moved it out of her reach. Put that away, she whispered. I opened the two messages. Serena, Caleb won't question it. He hates conflict. Adrian, useful as long as he stays quiet. Dead weight at the table, but useful behind it. I didn't pass the phone around. I showed the relevant people at the table, then set it in front of Serena. Rachel read the messages first. Her face changed. Serena, she said, is that real? Serena looked at me, not Rachel. You went through my private messages. I opened the event thread attached to expenses from our joint account and a guarantee carrying my name. I read what directly concerned the fraud you were hiding. It wasn't fraud. Then explained the $18,700. Her lips parted. I pulled a folded bank statement from the envelope in my jacket. No binder. No dramatic stack. Just the relevant page with the mislabeled charge and the reimbursement lines. This was described to me as gala support, I said. It paid for private dinners, ride shares, image consulting, photography, and travel tied to Adrian's venture. A woman farther down the table said, those expenses were submitted to the charity package. Serena answered too quickly. They were adjacent costs. Adjacent to what? I asked. The truth. Adrian's phone started buzzing against the table. He looked down at it, then flipped it over. The potential backer asked, Adrian, is the support gone? Adrian forced a smile. We are not discussing contract structure in the middle of a charity dinner. I looked at him. You were comfortable discussing my value. That was a joke. No. The joke was that you called me dead weight while using my signature to look credible. The man across the table picked up his napkin and placed it beside his plate. I need clarity before Monday, he said to Adrian. You'll have it. Do you have replacement support? Adrian didn't answer. That was the moment he lost the room. Not when I spoke. Not when I showed the messages. When someone asked him a direct question and he couldn't control the answer. Around us, conversations had gone quiet. No one gasped. No one applauded. People looked at their plates, at each other, at Adrian's phone. A donor near the next table whispered to the woman beside him. The photographer lowered his camera completely. Serena's eyes filled with tears. You're humiliating me, she said. I looked at her. You laughed when he humiliated me. Don't call it cruelty now, just because the room stopped laughing with you. You planned this. I documented what you did. You came here to destroy my night. I came here because you asked your husband to attend. Then you chose him again. Adrian pushed his chair back. You have no idea what you just interfered with. Actually, I said, I know exactly what I interfered with. He pointed at the phone. Those messages are out of context. What context makes dead weight at the table, useful behind it, respectful? His mouth tightened. I turned to Serena. I'm not here to compete with him. I'm here to end the arrangement both of you thought I was too stupid to notice. Serena clutched her napkin in both hands. I didn't know he sent the guarantee to everyone. You told him I wouldn't question it. I was trying to keep the event moving. You used our money. It was temporary. You gave him private details about our marriage. Everyone vents. You gave him material to humiliate me. I never told him to say those things. You laughed when he did. She shook her head, crying now. You're destroying everything. No, I'm refusing to fund the lie. I stood, put the bank statement back in the envelope, and slid my phone into my pocket. Serena followed me as I walked away from the table. Caleb, stop. I kept moving through the ballroom. Her heels clicked behind me across the polished floor. You don't just walk away from your wife, she said. I stopped near the hallway, far enough from the tables that the room could no longer hear us clearly. I'm not discussing our marriage in a hallway for an audience. You already discussed it in front of everyone. You made our marriage public every time you turned me into a story for him. I wasn't trying to hurt you. You were trying to impress him. My humiliation was simply acceptable collateral. That isn't fair. No, Serena. It isn't. She wiped under one eye, careful not to smear her makeup. What do you want me to do right now? I wanted you to tell him to stop. I mean now. Now I'm leaving. She grabbed my sleeve. Caleb, please. We came together. I looked at her hand until she let go. You walked away from being my wife long before I reached the door. I went to the valet stand, then changed my mind. I didn't want to wait beside the entrance while Serena decided whether to follow me. I put the valet ticket back in my pocket and ordered a rideshare. Adrian called before the car arrived. I didn't answer. He called again while I was getting in. I muted him. Serena sent 6 messages during the ride. Where are you going? You can't leave me here. People are asking questions. You made this so much worse than it needed to be. Please answer. I'm still your wife. I read them once and put my phone face down. The next morning, I woke in the guest room to the sound of cabinet doors closing in the kitchen. Serena had come home after 2 o'clock. When I walked in, she was sitting at the table in sweatpants, her gala dress draped over the back of a chair. Her phone was beside her, lighting up every few seconds. "Are you happy?" she asked. "No. Everyone is talking about it." I assumed they would. Rachel left early. 2 committee members asked me for copies of the expense reports. Adrian says one of the backers canceled a meeting. That is between Adrian and the people he misled. You embarrassed him in front of investors. He embarrassed himself in front of people whose money he wanted. She stared at me. "You sound proud." "I'm not proud that it took a ballroom full of witnesses for you to hear me." Her eyes filled again. I said I was sorry. "You haven't apologized." "I told you I didn't know he would use the guarantee like that." "That isn't an apology. It's a smaller version of the story." She pushed her phone across the table. "You want to see what you did? Read these." The messages were from friends and committee members asking what had happened, whether the expenses were accurate, and whether Adrian's venture had been represented as part of the charity package. One message from Rachel was longer. "Serena, I need space. You told me Caleb was jealous and unstable. The messages and account charges don't match what you said. You need to own this before asking anyone to defend you." Serena took the phone back. "Rachel is taking your side." "People aren't taking my side because I was louder. They saw the receipts." Her expression hardened. "Did she say that to you?" "No." Rachel texted me 20 minutes later. "I owe you an apology. I thought you were overreacting because that's how Serena explained it. I didn't know she had used your money or your name." I replied, "Thank you. I didn't invite a conversation about Serena. I didn't need another witness to validate what I already knew." Adrian left a voicemail. "You have no idea what you just interfered with. You distributed private communications, misrepresented a legitimate financial arrangement, and damaged my reputation. I suggest you have counsel contact me before I decide how to clear the record." I forwarded it to my attorney. He listened and said, "Do not respond." Adrian never sued. He could threaten me or explain why his private venture had depended on a guarantee obtained for a different purpose. He apparently decided the second option was worse. That afternoon, I sent Serena a written request for a complete accounting of the joint funds connected to Adrian and the gala. I listed the charges I needed explained and asked for supporting receipts. She came into the guest room holding her phone. "So now I have to submit reports to my husband? You needed honesty before spending our money to impress a man who mocked me. You're treating me like a criminal." "I'm treating our finances like something that requires records because trust has been abused." "Do I need permission to buy groceries now?" "Basic expenses are untouched. New discretionary charges are frozen until we know where the money went. You had no right to do that without telling me. You moved $18,700 without telling me the truth." She sat on the edge of the bed and covered her face. For a moment, I saw the woman I had loved. Not the polished version at the gala. The woman who once ate pancakes barefoot at midnight and laughed when syrup dripped on her dress. I wanted to sit beside her. I did not. She lowered her hands. "I got carried away," she said. "With what?" "With everything. The events. The people. Adrian making me feel like I belonged. You belonged before him. You don't understand what it's like to walk into those rooms and feel judged. I was standing beside you. That was different." "How?" She looked toward the door. "You never cared if those people approved of you. That isn't a flaw." "I did care." "I know." He opened doors. "And I became something you had to hide behind those doors. That's not what I wanted. It's what you accepted." She began crying again, this time without looking at her phone or checking her reflection. "I didn't sleep with him," she said. "I felt something in me settle. Not relief. Clarity. That isn't the finish line for loyalty." Her face tightened. "So you're ending 9 years over jokes?" "I'm ending the part where you call betrayal a joke. I made mistakes. You used our money. You used my signature. You shared private things about me with a man who enjoyed humiliating me. You told him I would stay quiet because I hate conflict. Then you laughed in my face when he proved you right. I said I'm sorry. You said you got carried away. What do you want from me?" I had already written it down. I gave her 4 conditions if she wanted any chance of repairing the marriage. Full financial transparency. A written timeline of the money, the guarantee, and her communications with Adrian. Counseling arranged by her, not another task handed to me. No personal contact with Adrian outside documented legal or committee obligations. Serena read the page twice. "This is controlling." "No. This is the minimum information I need to decide if trust can be rebuilt." You want access to everything. I want the truth about everything connected to the betrayal. And if I refuse, then there's nothing to repair. She placed the paper on the table. You've already decided. I've decided I won't continue the marriage under the old rules. For the next week, Serena moved between apology and blame. In the morning, she said she understood why I revoked the guarantee. At night, she accused me of enjoying Adrian's failure. She admitted that she had lied about some of the expenses, but called them networking costs. She admitted that Adrian used my guarantee in presentations, but insisted she believed it was temporary. She admitted sharing private marriage details, but said she needed someone to talk to. Whenever she reached the point where accountability required a sentence beginning with "I chose," she changed the subject. The gala committee removed her from donor-facing follow-up work. The email was polite. It thanked her for her contribution and said that, in light of questions regarding expense classification and private venture overlap, someone else would handle sponsor communications. Serena read the email 3 times. They're punishing me because of you. They're responding to what happened. They would never have known if you hadn't made a scene. That's not the defense you think it is. Rachel came by once to return a garment bag Serena had left in her car. They spoke on the front steps. I was inside, but the raised voices carried through the door. Serena said, "You're supposed to be my friend." Rachel answered, "I was your friend when I believed you. That doesn't mean I have to help you lie." He humiliated me. No, Serena. He made it harder for you to keep editing the story. After Rachel left, Serena came inside furious. Are you happy now? She thinks I'm a monster. I haven't spoken to Rachel about you. You don't have to. Everyone saw your little presentation. It was 4 documents. You know what I mean. I know you preferred the version where everyone thought I was insecure. She went upstairs and slammed the bedroom door. Adrian's deal didn't collapse overnight. He didn't lose every dollar he had. Men like Adrian usually have more than one exit. But the project lost momentum. The backer who had been sitting across from him at the gala postponed his commitment. Another requested revised financial disclosures. The presentation using my guarantee had to be corrected. A planned meeting was canceled after questions arose about whether Adrian had misrepresented private support. His assistant emailed my attorney asking for clarification on the scope of the revocation. The answer was simple. All support tied to my guarantee was withdrawn because the stated purpose had been misrepresented. Adrian still had money. He still had charm. He became what he feared most in that ballroom: questionable. 2 weeks after the gala, Serena finally gave me a written timeline. It was 3 pages long and incomplete. She listed the major expenses but omitted 2 dinners. She described the guarantee as committee-related support, even though the messages showed she knew Adrian was using it for his venture. She admitted telling him I hated conflict, but claimed it had been lighthearted. At the bottom, she wrote, "I never intended for Caleb to be harmed." I read it at the kitchen table while she watched me. "This isn't complete," I said. "It is everything I remember." "You forgot the dinner with the shared dessert?" Her face changed. The receipt showed 2 entrees and 1 dessert. Serena had told me that meeting involved 5 committee members. "It was just dinner," she said. "With Adrian." "Yes." "Why did you lie?" "Because I knew how you would react. That's the excuse people use when the truth would expose the choice they already made." She stood and paced to the sink. "Nothing happened." "You keep saying that as if physical cheating is the only form of betrayal. What do you want me to say?" "The truth without me dragging it out 1 receipt at a time." She turned around. "I liked his attention. Is that what you want?" "I liked walking into a room with him and having people notice me. I liked that he thought I was impressive." I waited. She continued, crying now. "And yes, sometimes I thought you made me look less ambitious. You didn't care about any of it, and I cared too much. That is the first honest thing you've said. I never wanted to lose you. You wanted to keep me where I was useful. That's not fair." You told him exactly that. I didn't call you dead weight. You laughed when he did. She sat down again. For the first time, she didn't argue. A counselor contacted me the next day. Serena had made the appointment. We attended 2 sessions. In the first, Serena focused on the gala. She described my public disclosure as traumatic and said she no longer felt emotionally safe because I had kept my investigation secret. The counselor asked, "What would have happened if Caleb had confronted you before the gala?" Serena hesitated. "I would have explained." I looked at her. Would you have told Adrian not to mock me? She didn't answer. The counselor asked again. Serena said, I would have tried to manage the situation. Manage it how? I asked. She looked down. Privately. That was the answer. She still believed the real offense was exposure, not deception. In the second session, I asked one question. If there had been no bank statement, no voicemail, and no message thread, would you have admitted any of this? Serena cried. She didn't say yes. After that session, I met with the family lawyer again. I didn't file in anger. I didn't file because Adrian had touched her arm or sat in my chair. I filed because Serena had spent weeks showing me that she regretted the consequences more than the choices. When I gave her the papers, we were at the same kitchen table where she had once handed me the guarantee. She stared at the first page. You said counseling was an option. It was. We went twice. And you used both sessions to argue that I should have protected your image while you were using my trust. So that's it. Yes. She looked at me with the exhausted disbelief of someone who had assumed there would always be one more chance. I thought you loved me. I did. Then how can you do this? Because loving you didn't require me to stay available for more of the same. She pressed both palms against the table. I can change. Maybe you can. But you don't believe me. I believe change begins when the person stops negotiating with the facts. She looked down at the papers. For a long time, neither of us spoke. Then she said, I lost you at the gala. No, I said. You lost me when you laughed. The gala was just when I stopped pretending I couldn't see it. The financial separation was handled through attorneys. Serena repaid a portion of the misused joint funds from her individual account. The remaining disputed amount was addressed in the separation agreement. The house bills stayed current. There were no dramatic lockouts, no destroyed property, no midnight screaming matches. There were simply documents, deadlines, and the slow removal of one life from another. Rachel sent one final message several weeks later. For what it's worth, Serena finally admitted she made you sound unstable because it kept anyone from questioning her choices. I'm sorry I helped reinforce it. I thanked her and left it there. Owen helped me move a few things. June brought food and didn't say, I told you so, although she had earned the right. One evening, after signing the last set of preliminary documents, I found an old photo in a drawer. Serena and I were sitting in a diner booth after an event, a plate of pancakes between us. Her shoes were on the floor. My tie was hanging loose. We were both laughing at something outside the frame. I kept the photo. Not because I wanted the marriage back, but because that version of us had been real. Serena wasn't always cruel. I wasn't always silent. We had loved each other before admiration became more important to her than intimacy. Remembering that didn't change what came next. The divorce moved forward. Serena lost the power couple image she had been trying to build because there was never a power couple. There was a wife chasing a room's approval and a husband quietly paying the cost. Adrian stopped calling after his attorney received the documentation. His venture survived in a reduced form, but without the same backers or the same aura. I heard later that he blamed personal instability around a sponsor for the delays. That sounded like him. Even at the end, he needed the problem to belong to someone else. As for me, I stopped attending events where my presence was useful only as background. I stopped explaining why disrespect bothered me to people committed to misunderstanding it. I stopped confusing restraint with permission. I didn't ruin Serena's night. I just stopped funding the version of her life where I was the punchline. If you liked it, don't forget to leave a comment and support the channel by subscribing. See you in the upcoming stories.